want to kind of talk about how you were kind of influenced early on that led you to kind of pursuing this life that you now have. And I think you were 17 years old, a Royal Geographical Society talk. What was it about that that was so impactful to you?
So I saw Sir Ranulph Fiennes talk about doing his Trans-Globe expedition. And there's this guy who went off and did this incredible journey, right? And it was really weird. I sat there at 17 years old and went, why can't I do that? Like, why am I going to like go and be a, lawyer or an accountant or whatever the hell it is? Like I want to do what he was experiencing. So just putting myself out there. And I think that that's maybe the greatest lesson my mum taught me, is that the idea of like, why not? You can go do it, go for it. So at the age of 23, we left university and there was a load of mountains in Kyrgyzstan that no one had ever climbed before. So we were like, why not? Let's go. And we spent 6 weeks or something climbing in Kyrgyzstan.
And you were kind of a little lost after university, right?
Yeah, I think so. I went down to Namibia and spent 4 months working on rhino projects, so translocating rhino and moving rhino. I met a guy in a bar who said, do you want to run a marathon for Save the Rhino? And I was like, yeah, sounds great. So we went to New York, ran a marathon, and then I kind of like raised this money and thought, well, I want to see where it's going to be spent. I don't want it to be squandered or, stolen or whatever. And the guy said, if you can get to this place in Namibia, you can get a job. So I was like, yeah, cool. So off we went.
And this was like an anti-poaching unit? Or?
Yeah. Well, we weren't with it. We were working like a little bit with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the day-to-day there?
The park only had certain amounts of money, so they could only do the rhino tagging and stuff on certain days because they couldn't fly the helicopter because they didn't have enough money. Mm-hmm. So on the days when they did, that was a wild day. That was like, we would go into the bush, Mike and I, one other guy with us, and we would go and track rhino spoor looking for rhino. And then we'd get really close to the rhino, so like really close, radio in the helicopter that would then come in. And then the helicopter would circle over above, the rhino would get spooked and they'd dart it. And then there would be just madness go on because this rhino is pissed and it's going through the bush. And this is a 2.5 or 2.2 ton animal. We would climb trees immediately and get the hell out of there while this animal's been darted. And it would run off in different directions. Then the horses would chase it because there were other guys that were mounted. And then...
Any close calls?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Like one guy, Moses, jumped up the tree and was like holding onto the branch, and the rhino's horn was underneath him like that. And for some reason, Moses thought it'd be a great idea to take his binoculars off and try and hit the rhino on the top of the head. And like it was from a cartoon, he was quite fat. And so the tree started like as this rhino was going mental underneath him.
So what happened?
The rhino then got distracted,
okay.
and literally he just sort of like gently fell off the tree and just collapsed on the ground in fear. But like there's another one where the helicopter darted and then the rhino was passed out, and then the vets and the medics come in and they do all their stuff. And then you give the drug. So Mike and I's job was to always, while the vet would put in the like wake up serum, we would take off the visor from the rhino because you put it on a visor to stop it getting traumatized or less traumatized. And we would grab it, and then when this stuff hit, this thing would wake up immediately, like poof, like this, and then it's pissed and disoriented. And so we would literally sprint to the back of this bucky, this 4x4, and the other guys would be on the back of them with their arms like this. And as you jumped at them, they would just grab you like this, and then the car would drive away. And then this one, it was bonkers. And then this one rhino just ran down the fire break towards the helicopter. And the guy's like, "Take off, Atty, like take off now." And you know how slowly a helicopter blade goes like. Well, this rhino's like dun 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 dun, and it's just getting worse and worse. And Atty's like, and this thing would be. This is a little Robinson helicopter. This rhino would have just gone through it.
Right.
And eventually one of the trucks managed to get in front of the helicopter and steer off the rhino, and Atty just sort of like shut down the engines and sort of walked outside and had a cigarette. It was like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, so that was Namibia.
And you did that for how long?
I did that for about 4 or 5 months.
What did being a freelance TV producer entail?
Jesus, well, you tell me, it's your job. It was That was kind of like I was doing extreme sports, so I'd just like find a cool sport that I liked and then film it, and that just meant that I was up in the mountains or under the ocean or somewhere interesting and new while these crazy people did whatever they were doing. So it was kind of fun.
Your university friend influenced you how?
So Tom Avery was the first one that said to us, let's go to Kyrgyzstan and go and find, or I've found these mountains no one's climbed before. So he was very much instrumental in that process of going somewhere new. Yeah. And then we skied to the South Pole together.
Your favorite part of the unclimbed mountains there, or rafting down the uncharted rivers in the Amazon?
Yeah, so there was like for about a decade, there was a core of us that would sort of change. It was just doing something new. That was the bit. So whether it was, as you say, kayaking down a river in the Amazon, which was for the New York Times, whether it was...
it was for the New York Times because you needed the trip funded, and that was an avenue to get money.
Exactly. Well, actually, my book agent at the time basically just said, "Oh, I've got a new job for you." And I was like, "Where is it?" And he goes, "Oh, it's in Africa." And I was like, "Where?" And he goes, "Suriname." I was like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure Suriname's not in Africa." And he's like, "You'll be great. You'll be great. You'll be fantastic. Just put the phone down." So yeah, I wrote an article for the New York Times. Which was cool, and then and that was great. It was a river rafting adventure, but like I knew absolutely nothing about canoeing. And then I was in the Congo for a bit with the Pygmies, which was awesome. Net hunting with them. That was research for one of my books. The Pygmies are like something from legend, you know. And you go out there, into the Intruri forest, which is like the Heart of Darkness style, middle of the Congo, huge canopy, vast, endless forest, and these guys are living like prehistorically, like literally with in little huts which are leaves that are in a little dome. They're wearing like a literal loincloth, and they are using poison darts and poison arrows to go hunting each day in the forest. And it's just like, wow. And they would smoke a lot of weed, and then we would charge off into the forest with poison weaponry. It was, I mean, what could go wrong? That was the thing where I really saw how, like, this is a person that lives absolutely in tune with nature. I'm like 5'11", and I think I'm relatively nimble. I would follow these guys through the forest, and I was like a charging rhino. I was like this lumbering, incapable, noisy, lost, hungry, mosquito-ridden, like it was just, and these guys just off they go. It was amazing to see.
How about getting bit by a piranha?
Oh, my favorite story. Yeah.
Genuinely?
Yeah. It's like I've got to show my children that I'm a macho hero, and I've got a piranha bite.
Do you actually? Is there a scar on you from it?
Like really annoyingly, the scar's faded quite a lot, so I'm really put out by that. Yeah. I was in the Amazon, and it just took a. It was a red piranha as well. There's a red-eyed or whatever they are, but it's a big sucker. It's like this sort of size, and it had a proper like onto me, and I lay on the banks of the river while my friend stitched up my foot, and caught another piranha with my fishing rod. I cut its head off and boiled it, and I've still got it at home. So I kind of feel one all, evens.
And it was borderline, like something quite severe could have happened, right?
It's the Amazon, like the jungle. I think that's why I like polar explorations, because there's nothing here to bite you or eat you or try and kill you.
So you're in your mid-20s and you get the idea with three of your buddies to ski and kite to the South Pole. I think there'd been only something like 12 people that had done it before. A number of folks had died and in the process. So like, why decide to do it?
So there were two different expeditions. The first one was where we skied to the South Pole. And then a couple of those guys went to the North Pole, and they went to ski to the North Pole. And I went back and then did a full traverse of the Antarctic continent. So I think 11 people had ever traversed Antarctica before. What I liked about the adventure was the idea of following Amundsen's route, who's the first guy to the South Pole, follow his route up through these monumental mountains to the South Pole, and then use these kites to kite ski across the other side.
And why did you like that idea?
Just because it's super dynamic. The first trip we did to the South Pole, skiing across the high polar plateau, you've been up there to the South Pole, it's endless white. So like pulling a sled.
And freezing.
And minus 35 degrees. Yeah, it's cold. So like a long expedition is literally grueling. You are pulling a sled which weighs 220 pounds day after day after day. I mean, the first trip took us 46 days. And you're losing weight and you're eating 4,500 calories a day, but you're burning like 9, 10, 11, 12. So you're starving.
And explain the slabs of butter.
Well, you're desperate for fat. So your body switches from normal tastes into just hankering, craving for like fat because you're burning all your own body's fat. So butter becomes like the most delicious thing you've ever eaten. It tastes like amazing cheese. Had you given me caviar on a souffle with something else expensive, it would just be like, whatever. Like raw fat is what you're after. Yeah, it's wild. But that flat and white is what it is. It's flat and white and it's grueling. And I wanted an expedition that was interesting. So to go through the mountains, to go through the crevasse fields is really interesting. To then get to the South Pole man hauling was tough, but then to pick up kites and then to kite ski across the other side. No one had ever done that before. And that was really exciting. You're normally doing 2.1 nautical miles an hour with a lot of hard work, pulling this damn sled. Now we could launch these kites and we could go. I mean, when I was kiting across Greenland, we were going 55 kilometers an hour. Like we were just flying across. Yeah. So you can cover insane distances. But as I say, it's colder, it's more dangerous, a lot more dangerous. But it's really efficient.
What was the best part of that trip and what was the worst part?
The best part was being amongst the ghosts of like Amundsen going up through the Transantarctic. No one had been up there since him. And all our heroes, like we're all sort of, love the early explorers, the Shackleton, Scott, all that stuff. And to sort of be in that silence, that was really, and imagine like silence, but in a vast part of the mountain range that no one had been in since then, with these huge crevasses and these snow bridges, and the landscape's wild, and it's just this silence. It's like you've just melted into the environment around and you're one with it. And it's just this crazy feeling of connectivity. It's wild. Yeah.
And the worst part of it?
The worst part was when we were kiting, we would kite when the wind was good. And so we would sometimes kite for 10 hours, 15 hours, 18. And you get tired. And I came over this ridge, I saw these huge crevasses in front of me that, if we went into, they'd kill us. So I ditched my kite down and the other guys came up behind me and they cut their kites as well. And as we were like, okay, we're going to pull back from the situation, we're going to kite around and miss this whole area out together, Dave went into a crevasse and he fell just through the snow bridge up to here. So his legs are kicking out over literally like 500-foot icy void drop. He's gone. And he's screaming for us to help him, but we can't hear anything over the wind. So we literally can't hear anything. He managed to sort of like push himself forward and wriggle across the snow bridge, which could, was splintering. It was like the whole way. And he gets himself to the safety, comes to us, and he's just wide-eyed with fear. And the wind is howling, and it's like everyone is just so on edge of what's just happened. And we launch our kites again. Paul goes first and he kind of like cuts across, then I'm next. And we had to like sort of just bounce over a snow bridge of a crevasse because the wind was too strong. We just, and that fear, that sort of like, just like really feeling like you're on the edge. It was the first time I really thought we're out of our depth here. We can really die. And how much I didn't want to die inside a crevasse. One of my friends died in Greenland in a crevasse. There's something about that that's really, really scary, and it's kind of like such a weird thing to say. I know, but like being entombed in ice at the bottom, that's scary.
Did you think you were going to die?
I die. I felt that on that expedition, honestly, I felt that we were always just a step ahead of this nebulous force that was sort of behind us the whole time. And we just got away with it. Now I look back on it with lots of pride and I'm very happy I did it and all those sorts of things. I don't think I'd do it again.
Was the exhaustion such, though, that it made death just I don't know, seem almost more normal at the time?
Exhaustion and cold do very funny things to you, and absolutely, you can kind of get a little bit drunk and cavalier. You know, you feel like you're drunk, and you get a little bit blasé about it. You're like, whatever. You're just operating on such thin amounts of sleep. You can be reckless with yourself because you're so tired. You're just like, oh, screw it. Let's just get over there, get it done, and we'll all be okay. And actually what you're doing is, you see it on Everest and mountain climbing all the time. You know, guys are absolutely exhausted and they're just like, I'll just push a little bit further and it'll probably work out. But you're not making, I mean, Everest, you've got the altitude, so that screws you in the mind, obviously. But yeah, I think that fatigue and the thing about polar expeditions is that most people could do it for a few days or maybe a week. But after sort of 60, 70 days of doing it, you know, and remember, like you've really lost a lot of weight. I went from 84 kilos to sort of like 66 kilos or something, 67 kilos. So you lose a lot of weight and you're in really a wretched state. So I'm really selling it, aren't I? You want to come on a trip?
And you only have, what, 2 changes of underwear, and which is remarkable. And
no, it's disgusting. It's not remarkable, it's vile.
You shower how?
In minus 30 degrees, at the end of the day, you take off all your clothes and you find a soft patch of snow and you rub the snow all over your body. That's how you do it.
What happened with losing the 8 toes?
When we crossed Greenland, we skied all day, and basically we had a really short time period in which to do a major polar expedition. So we decided to do a speed crossing.
Who's we?
Of Greenland. This is the old bullets from back in the day when we skied to the South Pole, plus my good friend George, who had been to the North Pole. So we had some real experience with us, and we got hit by a massive storm, put an igloo over our tents, and we slept beautifully for like 24 hours. And then we hooked up our kites on the end of the storm and then did pretty much half of Greenland in one night. So we kited for like 25 hours or something nonstop. It was really cold. It was like sort of, you know, the sun had dipped below the horizon a bit and it was sort of probably minus 35, something like that. So it was cold. And George had basically said, oh, I'll be, you know, his feet froze and he was kind of like, I'll be fine. I'll check it out when we stop. The problem is we just didn't stop. We just kept on going. And then we got in and we set up the tents and he just said, can you pull my boots off? And I remember just pulling off the plastics and then seeing this sort of brown blistering all over his toes. Yeah, he got some bad frostbite and lost 8 toes.
How do you get from seeing that frostbite to losing 8 toes?
So the frostbite itself, it just, you know, is obviously you've damaged the nerves and the flesh, you've frozen the flesh. And then what happens is it blisters and you need medical treatment and they'll try and stimulate the nerves again, but we couldn't. We were trying to reach the end of this expedition. And the next day we skied for like 10 hours through this ice fall pulling heavy sleds. And then we did the equivalent of a marathon to get to the other side. So then we finally sort of planted our flag on the other side of Greenland. We'd done the crossing, hooray. And then it was like, okay, George's toes. And basically the flesh then goes black and then you can wiggle it and then you can just snap it off. And now he's had them mounted in a like a perspex paperweight for his desk. He's got these 8 mummified toes that just sit there. Looks kind of cool, actually.